my name is Gary Lanham. I'm a realtor with Coldwell Banker, Fort Lauderdale Beach office, and welcome back to Tuesdays with Gary. I'm really excited today. COVID has kind of given us a break. We're kind of back in a normal routine again. I'm at my home office, and I'm coming to you being made possible by my videographer, Chatachi Egwu. And today I have a very special guest. I have a guest who's been a friend of mine for about 18 years. He's in the mortgage business. His name is Donn Rubin. He's from Fairway Mortgage. And today he's coming to us as a retirement mortgage specialist. And we're going to talk about that today. Donn, welcome.
Hi, Gary.
Hey, Donn, how are you?
Good. Great to be here. And as you know, this is my favorite subject.
I know it's your favorite subject, home equity conversion mortgage for purchase. And we're going to talk about that. And I really appreciate you coming on. Before we get started, I want to do a couple of housekeeping things. I want to make sure that our viewers know that we have a YouTube channel. In fact, we have two YouTube channels. We have one that's more recent, the last 5 years. It's Gary Lanham Group, South Florida. We also have the Gary Lanham Group as another YouTube channel. You can find over 200 videos there on all topics relating to real estate, selling real estate, buying real estate, and getting a mortgage. We also are broadcasting today. We're on Facebook, and I believe we're also on YouTube Live. Donn, welcome very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
So I had the opportunity to come to your seminar last week, and you had your conversion mortgage guy on coming in from Edina, Minnesota. Thank you for that opportunity. Harlan did just a wonderful job.
Thank you. Yes, he did.
And one of the things we talked about was we talked about forward mortgages, and we also talked about these home equity conversion mortgage for purchase. Would you mind sharing some of the objectives or the main reasons people should consider that home equity conversion mortgage?
Okay, well, before I get to like three of the most important features of the HECM for purchase, understand that it's designed for retirees, people 62 or older in their primary home, to create, number one, the most important thing, maximizing your purchase power. This allows someone to truly purchase the home of their desire. It also supplements cash flow because there is never, ever a required mortgage payment. And one of the things that's paramount to cash flow is in your retirement, not having a required mortgage payment. And also, third, but certainly not least, it preserves your retirement savings for growth. When you take your distributions, you can minimize or eliminate certain taxes, and you can avoid sequence of return risk with your HECM for purchase. So it's a win-win-win for everybody in retirement.
It's a wonderful program. I had my own personal bias about what I thought it might be, and then I came to your seminar. And even though I'd seen the webinar twice, it wasn't until I actually sat down in the room with you guys and with Harlan, and I had a chance to really understand and ask some questions to kind of do a deep dive in the process, that I realized that if you're 62 years old or older, that you're sitting on a cash machine that can allow you to do lots of things, not only generate cash or cash flow, but I think more importantly for someone like me, it allows me to use my equity in my home to purchase another property. So I want to start by talking about that increasing of the purchasing power, Donn. So for example, my house is worth probably about $800,000. I owe about maybe $200,000. I have about $600,000 equity. What would that allow me to do in a home equity conversion mortgage, as far as what would be my cap rate? How high could I go? How high should I go? And how, if I don't go to the maximum, how should I use my money?
Okay, well, let's say you've been in your home, say 35, 40 years, like most baby boomers.
Right.
If you go out into the market, whether you're downsizing, upsizing, right sizing, in 40 years, prices have changed. So let's say the home you desire, whether to be near family or near the water, costs $1.2 million. Well, that $600,000 that you're netting from the sale of your current home is all you'd have to put down to buy the $1.2 million home. And most importantly, again, never have a required mortgage payment.
So let me make sure I understand this. So I sell my home for 800,000. I have 200,000 that I owe to the bank. I've got 600,000 worth of equity. Are you saying that I can take that 600,000, multiply it times two, and that when I go to purchase again, I would be looking at up to 1.2 million?
Right. Depending on your age, the value of the home, and the margin, approximately 50%.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
You could
So
double your purchasing power.
So it doubles your purchasing power. So in this inventory starved market, I think a lot of people don't realize that they have the ability to get out of their current property and buy something new. Or if they buy something new, the thing I hear from my sellers is they have to leave the state, or certainly go to North Florida, where the dollar will take them farther, as opposed to staying in the Fort Lauderdale area.
Gary, you're so right. The senior community is sitting on 10 trillion, that's trillion with a T, in home equity. They do not realize that through the Hedging for Purchase, they can get the home of their dreams, the right home for them. They don't even know that they're in the market. And some are relying strictly on Social Security or pensions, or very little supplemental distributions, and they can't qualify for a forward mortgage. So this is an incredible opportunity for the senior market.
So just to differentiate, an forward mortgage, people maybe recognize that as a 30-year loan, right?
Correct.
You put a down payment in, and you typically up to 20 or more percent, and then you finance the rest up to 30 years or 15 years or 20 years, whatever schedule you select. So now you're saying that we're going to take the equity in our current property, be able to sell the property, take the equity that we actually have, multiply it times two, and look up to that dollar amount. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, and increase your cash flow, because who should be making a mortgage payment into their 90s?
Well, I think,
not good.
yeah, it's not something I would look forward to. It certainly seems like as more and more people hit retirement age, not that they retire, but oftentimes their income gets lower, and they don't want to run the rat race as fast, or they don't want to feel obligated to do that, because they want to start enjoying life. So let's talk about the hedging our risk in the housing market, as far as what's going on now in our market. So we don't have very much inventory, Don. We've got a lot of people that have a lot of cash coming in from high state income tax states like New York, Pennsylvania, California, and even places like Massachusetts. Let's talk a little bit more about hedging that risk and using that cash to compete in today's market. How would you suggest that these people who are doing a conversion mortgage work with their realtor to make sure they really get the property they want?
They should get pre-approved with me. Let me do a proposal where they're good to go, because we are closing Hedging for Purchases in 17 days. Certain condominium projects don't qualify for 17 days, but certainly any single family home, townhome, multi-unit property. I mean, I just mentioned multi-unit property. Can you imagine purchasing a 4-unit property? You live in one as your primary. You never have a required mortgage payment, and you're collecting rents from 3 other units.
Well, it's funny. That was an example that you guys shared at the seminar last week, which was a dynamic. I mean, what an interactive seminar. Some of the best realtors in Fort Lauderdale were there. And, Eileen Mulkey was there, and she's not quite there at the age, but she came out of the seminar. She goes, once I turn 62, I'm going to sell my house, which she has as income producing property anyway, single family home and an apartment. And I'm going to buy a 4-plex, and I'm going to collect the rents, and that's going to be my retirement. What a brilliant plan. What a friggin' brilliant plan.
And I also want to mention, because this isn't just for any income bracket, our loans go as high as $8 million purchase price.
So the conversion mortgage, you can purchase up to $8 million. I think that's such an important thing to remember, Don. I think if people think about this type of mortgage in the past, I mean, I think it was kind of seen as, people that didn't have a retirement plan and they wanted to take the cash out of their house.
Right.
And, maybe it was their last resort as far as how they could survive in their property. But what I'm hearing now, what I'm learning now about this new product is that it's changed over the years. Maybe you could
Exactly.
go over some of the myths about the product, the way it stands today, the way it used to stand, like say 20 years ago.
Well, you're right, Gary. As you say, it was always considered the loan of last resort. In fact, less than 10% of our reverse retirement loans are done for that reason. The other 90% are for understandable cash flow, tax savings. My favorite thing is when someone's buying a $5, $6, $7 million home and the stock answers, well, I'm loaded, I'm rich, I'm going to pay cash, I don't need it. I love that because they may not need it, but after they understand it, they'll want it because cash is king and everybody understands more money. So one of the most common myths, and this was never true, but you always hear the bank owns the home. That's not true. You always own the home. This is a mortgage like any other mortgage. The only difference is the way it's paid back. So you own the home. Well, the bank wants to foreclose on us. Well, the only responsibility you have in a HECM for purchase or refinance is to pay your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance and any homeowner dues if they apply. If you own a home free and clear and you don't pay your property taxes, you'll still be foreclosed on.
You'll be foreclosed on with that situation as well.
Correct.
So I think the thing that I learned and was underscored for me the most was the different price points. When you say purchase up to $8 million, that's a totally different kind of a buyer than most people accommodate in real estate. But I think there's a reason for those wealthy buyers to look at those expensive properties and use this home equity conversion mortgage for the purpose. Can we talk a little bit about some of the tax advantages and how you can use an IRA and how you can look at that mortgage as far as being able to pay down the interest if you choose to, or if you don't choose to do that, what the implications are? I know that's a lot.
Well, and also understand that I'm not a tax attorney or a CPA. So I will tell you what some people have done, what some of the advantages are. Okay. Certainly, when you do a refinance or even a purchase, you can create a line of credit. That line of credit continues to grow at the same rate as the loan. And when you take withdrawals, it is tax-free. Take someone who would pay cash at any price for a house. They're limited on the current year interest deduction to say $24,026. Some people with careful planning with your CPA and tax attorney can stack deductions, can wait 3, 4, 5 years when there's enough interest, and they can trigger all those year tax deduction and make a payment to their reverse, and it goes to their line of credit, which they can withdraw. So there are a lot of advantages. Now let's talk about our current scenario right now with the stock market. Since January, people that are taking distributions out of their investment accounts, they're suffering losses, big losses. A lot of people with their tax-free line of credit have coordinated withdrawals with their investment accounts when the market is down, and therefore preserved the value of their investments. A lot of other people, especially those that start at 62, use that tax-free income to convert their 401ks to Roth, pay the tax now with their illiquid home equity, and reap the benefits when they start taking distributions. So those are the major things.
That's pretty major, and it's funny because that's a very sophisticated financial planning tool. I think that I feel grateful and lucky that I had a chance to sit in on that, to be able to discuss that with some of my customers. Just to pivot a little bit on that and to talk about so many people that are in their homes, they don't think they have any options, or that they don't have any purchasing power because, number one, they aren't cash buyers, right? And they don't realize that they're sitting on this cash that can be converted to buy something 100% higher than where they're currently living. So let's talk a little bit, if you will. I'm going to kind of take you to another place in terms of condo living. We know that in Florida, for example, that we used to have standard 40-year reviews, and that now has been changed by Tallahassee, and we now have a 30-year review. And we know that many people who have come to Florida over the past 30, 40, probably 50 years, who chose to buy into a condo, pretty much were aware of what would happen if you don't create a slush fund. And here it is 40, 50 years later, and we see what happens when you don't have a slush fund. We have such things called special assessments. I think that's triggering more and more people on the beach, Don, to look at what's my exit plan? Do I have an exit plan? Can I still use the equity and maybe go to another condo, newer probably, so that there wouldn't be the same kind of required maintenance? Or in fact, I've also talked to some condo owners that say, you know what? We thought we were going to really like the condo living, but now we got grandkids. I don't want to leave South Florida. I don't want to leave the state of Florida, but I want to have more room. And I'd like to get out of the condo environment and move back into a single family house. That has been the most interesting point that I've learned lately, of so many people living in a condo that said, you know what? I've done it. They got freaked out and scared when COVID came. They didn't want to be in the elevators. They didn't want to be in the lobbies. And now they've got ever increasing HOA, homeowner association assessments. And then they've got these 40-year reviews that are looming over their heads. Have you seen that in your practice as well?
Yes. You touched on some very important points. First, let me say that for purchase, we can still do condos. They're a little different because condos in general are not FHA approved. So it requires a proprietary investor that will do condos. But the one thing the condo must have is at least 10% in reserves of their income. And as you know, Gary, not all condos have sufficient reserves, or some don't have any.
Let's say many. Many
That
don't have
said,
any.
You're right. I've never seen this before, like a max exodus of a senior community exiting condos for a different lifestyle because of the reasons you pointed out. So equity is equity, no matter what their departing residence is. If they have equity in that, they can use that towards their down payment with any future property.
So I'm reminded, of course, Surfside brought a lot of these topics to the surface, and it was a tragic event. But I'm reminded of even before Surfside. I don't know, Don. My chronology may be incorrect, but I think it was 7. It could have been 10 years ago, when Embassy towers on the beach. There's 2 towers on the beach, and I remember, a lot of people were buying in there from Canada and also from New York City. And I don't know, 5 or 7 years ago, there was a special assessment because there were some structural problems. And as I recall, the small units were getting a $65,000 special assessment. No bueno. Who wants to find that out? And in today's dollars, it may look a little easier to accomplish, but 5, 7 years ago, that was still a lot of money. I think it's still a lot of money now to somebody to say, well, we deferred all the maintenance. Now we need to come up to par. We now need to invest $65,000 plus, depending on the size of your unit. So I think the recent change, where I'm going with this, is I think the recent change in Tallahassee is now decreased that review time from 40 years to 30 years. And I have some experience, and you and I have talked about this before, and I like to bring it up because even the condos where you can get a conventional loan are slow in putting together their disclosures and what their engineering report is. So have you experienced that? I mean, I had some situations where they didn't have the reports, and essentially the loan didn't close. So it's hard enough to put a buyer into a contract these days, competing with competitive bids and so forth, and then got to the condo association and they couldn't give us a structural report, an engineering report, so the contract was null and void.
That's
Have you seen
exactly
that too?
that's exactly why we can't guarantee 17-day closing in a condo. We're at their mercy. And I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I'm going through that right now with a condo purchase that may not, it definitely won't close on time because of the property management office not giving us what we need.
So, when we first started talking about this, not being able to get the response from the condo associations, I thought, well, that's kind of curious, interesting that all these condos are in the same situation. And then I realized that, what's underneath the kimono, maybe people are afraid to share or show, and that it wasn't any kind of conspiracy. It also led to the amount of work that was required of the HOA to put that kind of document together. And it makes me wonder, just curiously, are these requirements going to lead to a forced engineering report?
It's funny. I believe the end result will be that. But before that, it will be shorter inspections, like you say, 30 years, 20 years. And I think a certain percentage required of reserves. I see that coming.
It's funny. I was talking to Robin Perlman Rodriguez today, and we were talking about our careers as realtors, and I'm sure it's the same with you as a mortgage broker. I've never had so much continuing education all the time as I've had in these 18 years of being a realtor, and it's important, I think, to have that education because it keeps us tuned into the current issues, the current problems, the current situation. But it's an ever-changing, dynamic field, and I'm sure it's the same with you on the mortgage side.
Well, you're right. We're both in a business that changes every day, and that's why it's so important who you work with, because we have to know these changes. We have to know what the guidelines are, what's coming, what's best for the client.
So I think it's, we recognize as a realtor, I recognize I'm not a financial planner. I recognize I'm not an attorney, but I recognize that I do have a responsibility to both my buyers and my sellers to put them in touch with the right resources to get the right answers. I would always want to make sure that they get the information that they need. And one of those that comes dear to my heart is that seller's disclosure, certainly in a single family house and also in a condo. And going back to those 30-year reviews now, that condo seller's disclosure has gotten a little tricky.
I imagine. Well, it's like you say, we all stay in our lane, but to do right for your buyers and sellers, you need the right realtor, the right finance person, the right CPA, the right financial planner if they don't have one. Everyone serves a purpose. And if we all work together, it's like a team of doctors performing surgery. There's a much better outcome.
So thank you so much for talking about the hedging our risk and for understanding better the increased purchasing power that we have. One thing we really haven't touched on is the fact that you get the home equity conversion mortgage and you no longer make a payment. So the ability to not make that payment, and for example, to take the amount of money that you are making in your mortgage payment and now throw that, if you want to go real conservative, like a U.S. Treasury bond, or if you want to take advantage as you watch the stock market continue to go down, to figure out an entry point. But you have so many options now with that money that was going to pay your basically your landlord or your bank, and now you have an opportunity to invest that money in something that could actually provide you a much better retirement.
And Gary, we can't forget, especially now with rampant inflation, there are people out there that started to retire comfortably. And with the rising costs in every sector, sometimes saving that mortgage payment affords them the life they were accustomed to and wish to have, going out to dinner more, helping the kids, going on a cruise. So there's lots of things that saving that mortgage payment can help with.
Well, I tell you, Donn, I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. And again,
me too.
If you're thinking about ways to downsize or upsize or get out of your current living situation and you don't have the cash, you might want to talk to Donn about this home equity conversion mortgage for purchase, because you probably have a bigger asset than you realize, and you have a lot more options than you realize. And after all, that's what we really want to look for. The world is pretty small right now. We've gone through COVID. We've gone through Well, actually, let's start with the recession of 2008. We've gone through that. We've gone through COVID. Now we've got a stock market that we don't really know where it's going to go, but everybody's suggesting that we're going to have a recession coming. That's a way out of this, which is kind of desperate. And we also have this housing situation where we don't have any inventory. So I believe, I don't have a crystal ball either, but I believe that with this additional freedom that some of these homeowners have, that we could actually create inventory. We could help change the housing supply and make properties available to more and more buyers. And that's the interesting thing about this market, is that even with inflation, because of COVID, because of work from home activities, people are still coming to Florida.
And Gary, 10,000 people a day are turning 62. The statistics are 1 in 4 want to move within a year. So that's 2,500 properties that could come on the market. So you're right. This is a huge market that doesn't even know it exists.
Yeah, and I think it's going to take sessions like this and sitting down with our customers, and especially my customers who are 62 and older, or even some that are right around 60, to set them up for the conversion once they do turn 62. Donn, is there anything else that we should be talking about today?
Well, even if you're not looking to purchase a new home and you have sufficient equity in your current home, that equity is useless. It's illiquid. Let's talk about putting that equity into a tax-free line of credit to help you with all the same things we're talking about as a purchase. So give me a call. I just love to discuss this with you. And Gary, it's always a pleasure to be on Tuesdays with Gary.
Well, you make Tuesdays with Gary better, and I really appreciate you. And of course, I couldn't do any of this without Shitachi Egwu. And if you haven't been paying attention to Mediascope on Wednesday at 6 o'clock on Facebook and YouTube and and Instagram, you are missing the boat. You will learn more about technology and what things are going on today than you ever thought or that you ever imagined that were going on. Donn, we got a question from Eileen Mulkey. If husband and wife are both over 62, can they each have a reverse mortgage on a different property? Great question.
No, it is a great question. It gets asked a lot. They would have to get divorced.
Or not live together, right?
I don't know how you want this answered, but they'd have to divorce to have two primary homes.
Right. So yes. Thanks, Eileen. That was a great question. And the product, as I understand it, is designed so to be your primary residence.
Correct.
So if it is your primary residence and you're married, then you'd have to pick one, and you may have to pick the home over the husband, or the husband over the wife.
Which has happened before.
Which has happened many times before.
Okay. Thank you.
Donn, thank you very much. I'll look forward to seeing you later this afternoon. And thank you, viewers, for coming in. Again, please take a look at my YouTube channel. It's Gary Lanham Group, South Florida. Take a look at the different videos. We have over 200 videos to talk about all things real estate, only to help you make better decisions. I'm Gary Lanham at Caldwell Banker, and I can be reached at 954-695-6518. Thanks for viewing.